Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, Rosh HaShanna Daf Vav. We begin 10 lines from the top of the Amud. Tana Rabbanon. We learned in a Brisa. In the last couple of Daf, we had the sugya regarding Bal Ta'achar, where we learned that a person has a mitzvah asay to be Mekayim his nether, to bring this carbon soon after the commitment. We had a mitzvah lois asay as well, which we actually focused on yesterday. Pasuk in Dvarim Chav Gimel, which says, Ki sidor neder l'Hashem Elokecha le'sa'acher l'shalmoi. That's where the term Bal Ta'achar comes from. Le'sa'acher l'shalmoi. Hurry up, bring the carbon without delay. In the upcoming Brisa, we're going to focus on a similar pasuk, which seems to tell us similar halachas. Tana Rabbanan. We learned in a Brisa. This is a pasuk in Dvarim Chav Gimel as well, but it's two psukim later than the pasuk that we had yesterday. The pasuk reads, Moitzos hasecha tishmar. You want to fulfill the words which you express. Be mekayim your nedarim. Pay up your dues. V'asisa kasher darta l'Hashem Elokecha nedava asher dibarta beficha. That's the pasuk. The Brisa will now break apart the pasuk and darshan each word separately. Tana Rabbanan moitzvah sasecha. Now, if the pasuk only says that moitzvah sasecha kasher adarta, it would seem like the pasuk is telling you to be mekayim and moitzvah sasecha. Zu mitzvah saseh. Here we go. We have a mitzvah saseh, obliging a person to be mekayim moitzvah sasecha, the words of his utterance. Tishmar, that's the next word in the pasuk. Zu mitzvah lois asay. The word tishmar, Gemara speaks about hishamer or pen or al, which all allude to a mitzvah lois asay. Be careful. Don't transgress. Right? Tishmar is don't be careful. Watch yourself from transgressing. So tishmar zu mitzvah lois asay is coming to tell you, don't be over. Don't delay bringing that nether. The next word for Asisa is a Ashara LaBezdin, is coming to instruct Bezdin Sheyasucha, to compel a person to fulfill his commitments. The pasuk continues, Kasher Nordarta, that's referring to what? Zed Neder, a personal commitment. The next words, L'Hashem Elokecha, is coming to add more. Elochatois, Va'ashamois, all types of karbanis. They're included in this concept of Bal Ta'achar. Oilos Ushlamim, of course we're speaking about Oilos Ushlamim, which are Chiyuvim, as Rashi explained for us yesterday. Oilas Re'iyah, Shal Mechagiga. The pasuk continues with the word Nedava. What is that? Kimashmoi, a donation. Rather than a personal obligation, Hari Alai, you're pointing to a certain behema, I'm going to bring this as a Nedava. That's also on the list. The pasuk continues, Asher Dibarta. What is that? Elu Kacha Bedek Habayis. If one commits to donating something to the Beis HaMikdash's building fund. The pasuk continues, Beficha. What is that? It's tzedakah. Rashi says it's an extra word to include tzedakah. Taisus actually brings a pasuk in Yeshaya, which says, Yeitze mipi tzedakah. So we see that tzedakah is related to peh, and that's why we say, Beficha zu tzedakah. So that's the Brisa. Says the Gemara, Amar Mar, let's go back. We said, Moitzvah sasecha, zu mitzvah saseh. To be machayiv a person with the mitzvah say to bring his nedarim, to fulfill his commitment as soon as possible. Lamali, why do we need another mitzvah say? We already have one. Haven't we learned it from a different pasuk? When you come to the Migdash, bring your karbanis, which already gave us the mitzvah say. Next, the Brisa says Tishmar zu mitzvah lois asay. It's warning you against neglecting your obligations. Lamali, why do we need another mitzvah lois asay? We had it yesterday. Lois is coming to tell you, don't be over, don't transgress, don't delay. Next, Vasisa, which is coming to tell you what? Ashara lebezdin sheasucha. Bezdin is instructed to force a person to be mekayim his neder. Lamali, why do we need a pasuk for that? We already know that from elsewhere. Miyakriv oisei nafka. Haven't we learned that from the pasuk Yaakov oisei the Sanya? The Brisa says, Yaakriv Oisai. This is a pasuk towards the beginning of Parshas Vayikra, which says that a person is meant to bring his korban, oilo korbanai, yakrivenu al pasach oil moyed, yakriv oisai, the ritzoyne lifnei Hashem. Now, why do we need the extra words yakriv oisai? Because the pasuk could have sufficed with yakrivenu. We learn from here that we force the person yakriv oisai, melamed shekoifin oisai. If one fails to bring his korban, Bezdin will force him, koifin oisai, to bring it. Yochel ba'al korach, perhaps even against his will. The pasuk continues, Yaakov oisai liritzoynoi, willingly. Well, how could he do it forcefully and willingly at the same time? Okay, tzad, how do you do this? Koifin oisai she'emer. He will force him until he says, I want. I'm doing it willingly. Now, how does this work? If it's koifin oisai, then obviously he doesn't want to do it. Says the Rambam, actually in Hilchas Gittin, that at times a person's Yetzer Hara clouds over the Yetzer Tov. It creates that smoke stream, that distraction, and by beating him, by forcing him, we are pushing aside the Yetzer Hara, which isn't really his true Ratzon, isn't really his real will, and then his real Ratzon shines out, and he says Reitzani, which is an expression of his Yetzer Tov, unaffected and undisturbed by the Yetzer Hara. In any case, we have a Brisa, which learns this same halach from another pasuk. Now, we do force a person to fulfill his obligations. Why do we need another pasuk to tell us the same thing? So really, it's a kasha on the entire brisa. We have a whole arrangement here. A pasuk which tells us mitzvahs asay, mitzvahs lois asay, and also koifin oisay, where it seems that we already know all these things from elsewhere. That one is meant to hurry up to be Mekayim his Nidarim, not to delay, and if he does neglect, Bezdin will force him to do it. Answers the Gemara two separate things. Chad Amar v'lei afrish. One arrangement of psukim is speaking where he committed, he spoke, but he had not yet set anything aside for the korban, for fulfillment of that neder. V'chad. And the other arrangement of psukim is speaking where afrish, he already set aside the korban, for instance. So not only did he commit himself, but he actually was mafresh the korban, or the tzedakah, or the neder, or whatever it is. V'lo yakriv, but he failed to bring it. He didn't actually bring the korban, or give the tzedakah. So one case is where he spoke, but hadn't done anything to be mekayim that dibur. He didn't act upon his commitment. The other set of psukim is where he did act upon it. He did hafrasha, but he has yet to deliver the item. And in both cases, we learn there is a mitzvah say to hurry up. Eloisa say warning you against neglecting to be mekayim that chiv, and we have bezdin which are kaifa, a person to bring it about. Utzricha, and both psukim are needed. Both these scenarios carry an inherent chidush, which is not found in the other case. The Yashmin and Amar v'lei afrish. Had the psukim only spoken about the case where he expressed, he committed, verbally without being mafresh, I would say, yeah, this person better hurry up, because he didn't do anything. He didn't even act upon his dibur. He spoke and spoke, but didn't do anything about it. And the Torah is warning him against doing that. You have to be mekayim your dibur. You can't just let your dibur hang without fulfillment. So I would think in that case, he has a chiv to hurry up. Aval afrish v'lei akriv. But suppose he was mafresh the korban, but didn't yet deliver it to the mikdash. Perhaps I would say it's not so terrible. Ema, you can say kol echad isay, wherever that korban is, begaza de rachmana isay. It's as though it's sitting in the treasure house, begaza, the treasury, the rachmana of Hashem. Okay, he didn't deliver it yet, but wherever it is it within Hashem's domain? The Gemara in Chulin adds the pasuk, L'Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya. Whoever the animal is, let's deem it to be within Hashem's domain, and therefore delivery is not so crucial. Tzricha. That's why we need a pasuk for that as well. Hurry up, deliver the animal. Be mekayim the korban, the hakrava, all the way until the actual hakrava. Vi Ashmin and Afrish Akrif, had the pasuk only spoken about a case where he set it aside, he was mafresh, but was not yet makriv, I would say that's terrible. The kamashile gabe, he's withholding something which doesn't belong to him. He's mashe by himself something which belongs in the mikdash. That's terrible. Aval amar v'lei afrish, but if he only spoke but was not yet mafresh, I would say it's not so terrible. Of course, he has to be makayim the commitment eventually, but perhaps bal ta'acha doesn't apply. Emo dibura v'lei klumu. Dibur itself is not so tangible, it's not so significant, and perhaps all these halachas will not apply to dibur tzricha. That's why we need a pasuk to tell you. Mitzvahs asay, mitzvahs loisasay about ta'achar, and the concept of kif and oisay applies in both cases equally. When he spoke without hafrasha, or hafrasha without delivery, both are grouped together and put under this banner of Baal Ta'achar. Says the Gemara, how can you say that one of these psukim arrangements are directed on a case where he was oimer, he just verbalized, he expressed the commitment without hafrasha? How could that be? V'nadava ksiva. On this list we find nadava as well. And what is nadava? Nadava is designating a certain animal for akrava. So apparently he was mafresh. How can you say he was amar v'lei afrish? Nadava by definition means hafrasha. What's now? We have a Mishnah in Maseches Megillah which says Eizehu neder. What is the difference between neder and nadava? Eizehu neder. A neder is ha'omer harei alai oila. I am going to bring an oila. It's a personal commitment. Ve'eizehi nadava. What is nadava? Ha'omer harei zu oila. This specific animal will be an oila. Uma bein neder and nadava. What halachic difference is there between one and the other? When it's a neder, so it's a personal commitment, he's not going to be exempt until he fulfills that commitment. May say nignav. Suppose he was mafresh an animal for carbon, it died, it was stolen. He has to look after the commitment that he made. He has to be mekayim that neder, despite the fact that the animal that he was mafresh went missing. It's a personal commitment, as opposed to nadava, where he designates a certain animal as a carbon without personal commitment. This is going to be an oil, a shlamim. In that case, if the animal gets dies or gets stolen, he's not chay b'achrayis. In any case, we see that an nadava is harezu, which inevitably means hafresh. So how can you say that we're speaking where he was amar v'lei hafresh? We spoke without hafresh. Would it be a nadava? Amar Rava, I'll find you a amar v'lei hafresh which can have the status of nadava. And that's what the pasuk is speaking about. Mishkach asla. We're speaking about the following case. Kigoy de amar harei alai oila. He says, look, I'm going to bring an oila. It's a personal commitment, but he inserts a condition. Al manaz she'eni chayiv b'achriyusa. On condition that I will not be obligated to look after it. I'm not responsible for lost or stolen karbanis. So here we have an amar expression, verbalization, without a personal commitment. So really it's another version of nadava. That's what the pasuk is speaking about when we say amar v'lei afrish. As per nadava, we're speaking about this type of case. Asks Tosfos, why is this different than masna amashakasa b'torah? A person can't just manipulate the Torah. I want to do this on condition that, well, if the Torah considers this to be a personal commitment, then it's chay b'achrayis. How can he come up with this new creature? I'm going to bring an oila, but not be chay b'achrayis. So in the words of Tosfos, it's loy dami lemasna mashakasa b'torah. It's not like a person wants to condition a halacha according to his liking. It's loy dami. You can't compare it. We don't have that concern here. Tosfos doesn't really explain why. Tosfos Rosh adds, he says, because we assume that he wants to make an adava. The fact is, he's saying, I don't want achrayis. So although he starts by saying harei alai oila, which sounds like a neder, like a personal commitment, the fact is he concluded the words ein chay b'achriyusa. So the das, the assumption that the das of this person is to really create a nedava commitment, and that's all. The Ritva actually says a little different. He says that when we say neder carries with it achrayis, it's not because the Torah mandated that neder comes along with achrayis. It's because that's what he had in mind. When he says Ari Alai, I am committing to bring that oila and look after until it's brought. Says the Ritva, but if he actually spells it out differently, he says, I'm going to bring an oila with achrayis. Okay, so we don't have that mindset, we don't have that das, we don't have that commitment, that shibud, so it's considered like an adava. Continues the Gemara. We said befichas u'tzedakah. The word befichas come to include a tzedakah commitment, which also carries with it the halachos of al ta'achar if one delays fulfilling the mitzvah of tzedakah. And the Brisa learns that it goes together with karbanos, and therefore the halacha of al ta'achar only gets triggered once he misses 3 yomim tovim, 3 regalim, according to that sheet. Amar Rava, you meant to know that tzedakah is different. Tzedakah mechayiv alola alter. Ba'al ta'achar by tzedakah applies immediately. My time and why? Why is it different than karbanos? They'll kaimi aniyim because he has aniyim to give him to. It's different than karbanos, which are meant to be brought to the Beis Hamikdash, which is visited 3 times a year. There you have 3 yomim tovim as opportunities, but here tzedakah is not dependent upon the Mikdash. If you have aniyim, give it to them. So he's chayiv right away. As soon as he has an opportunity to give a tzedakah, he neglects that opportunity. Baal ta'achar sets in. Pshit. Well, of course. What's the chiddush of Rava? Isn't that self-understood? As soon as he ignores his commitment, he's chayiv and baal ta'achar. Mal detema, perhaps I would say no. Kivan de binyana de karbanos ksiva. Since we find that tzedakah is on that list amongst the other karbanos, perhaps it's meant to be compared to karbanos. Ada avri elagimel urgalim kir karbanos. Perhaps Baal Ta'ach only sets in when he misses 3 regalim, just like the karbanos. Kamal Shimon, the chiddush is no. When it comes to tzedakah, we treat it differently. And what is the svara? What is Rava's reason? Explains the Gemara. Hasam hu detalinu rachmanu b'regalim. By karbanos, we understand that the Torah would depend upon regalim, because the regal is when you visit the Mikdash. And that's when you have an opportunity to bring your karbanos. So we understand why it depends on regalim. Aval hachaloi, but when it comes to tzedakah, why would it depend on regalim? We have aniyim who can receive the tzedakah, and therefore says Rava, the Baal Ta'achar of tzedakah is not dependent upon regalim. Now, it's interesting to note that Tosfos back on Daf Daled, on that brisa, which actually tells us that tzedakah, as well as chatois v'hashamas, are all dependent upon 3 regalim. So it sounds like tzedakah is connected to other karbanos when it comes to Baal Ta'achar. So Tosfos asked the kasha on Rava. How does this work with Rava, who tells us over here that tzedakah is mechayiv al alta right away? Says Tosfos, Rava is speaking when there are aniyim present before him, so you can give it to them. So why is he ignoring the aniyim? He's chayiv Baal Ta'achar right away. The brisa there is speaking, there are no aniyim before him, no aniyim available to receive its tzedakah, and therefore he has 3 regalim to fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav, kiven she'avar olav regel echad, another halacha in the name of Rav. Even when it comes to karbanos, where a person is generally allotted 3 regalim for Baal Ta'achar, but you meant to know, when it comes to mitzvahs asay, kiven she'avar olav regel echad ever asay. As soon as he allows 1 Yom Tov to pass him by, he's over an asay. Which asay? We actually had this the other day. Ubas hashama, avesim shama. As soon as you come, bring the carbon. So the first regel triggers the mitzvah asay. Although when it comes to the leis asay, he has 3 regalim for that to happen. Meisvei, we're going to have a kasha from a Mishnah on Rava. The Mishnah is speaking about a vlad an offspring of a shlamim. According to some shittas, you can't bring it as a carbon. According to others, you can. You actually treat it like a shlamim itself. Heid Rabbi Shua, Rab Pafias, both of these Tanoim testified that personal experience with this halacha. And he testified al vlad shlamim shikrav shlamim. The offspring of a shlamim is brought, is treated like a shlamim itself. Amar Pafias, ani meid. I have personal testimony. We had a para, which was actually a shlamim. The para we ate on Chag Pesach. And what happened to the offspring of that para? And the vlad of that shlamim we ate b'chag during Sukkot. So this proves the point that a vlad shlamim is treated like a shlamim. Okay, that's the Mishnah. How does this pertain to our Sukkot? Says the Gemara, why did they wait until Sukkot, from Pesach to Sukkot? Bishlam Pesach like Ravu, I understand why they couldn't bring it as a shlamim on Pesach itself. Perhaps it was underage. It wasn't yet 8 days old, which would allow it to be brought as a karm. Okay, so it couldn't be brought on that actual Yom Tov of Pesach. Perhaps it was a newborn, too early. But how do they allow it to pass through Shavuos? Why did they delay it? According to Rav, as soon as you miss one Yom Tov, you miss the Mitzvah Aseh. Amar Zvid Mishmed Rav. Zvid answered in the name of Rav himself. You know why they didn't bring it on Shavuos? The Vlad, the offspring, was unwell on Shavuos, and Taisus brings a Gemara that a chayla is actually puzzle to be brought as a karm, and therefore they didn't bring it Shavuos. Okay, so although typically you meant to bring the karm right away, and if you allow one Yom Tov to pass by without bringing it, the mitzvah asay was considered to be neglected. But this case is different because it was unavailable for Akrava. Rav Ashi Amar has another teretz. What does Rav Pafias mean when he says that we had the Vlad b'chag? Chag HaShavuos. He actually means Shavuos. There's no kasha. V'idach, what does Rava do? Why didn't Rava answer this teretz? He says you can't say Chag is referring to Shavuos. Why? Because Kolecha de Tani, Pesach, whenever we have a mentioning of Pesach and followed by a mentioning of Sukkos, of Shavuos, Tani Atzeres. The Chazal would use the word Atzeres. Actually, the Ramban and Chumash says that Pesach and Shavuos go together, hand in hand. It's like you have Chalamoid between Pesach and Shavuos. First part is called Chag HaMatzah, is Pesach, and the second part is called Atzeres. So when you lead into Shavuos, coming from Pesach, you say Pesach and Atzeres. So over here, if indeed the term Chag is a reference to Shavuos, it would have used the word Atzeres instead of Chag. The fact that the Mishnah mentions Chag with in close proximity to Pesach, apparently it's referring to Sukkos. So that takes back to the Kasha. Why did they allow it to pass through Shavuos? Apparently it was not Roy for Akrava, it was a Chayla. Continues the Gemara with a third halacha in the name of Rava. Amar Rava, Kim she'avar lav gimel rugalim. You have a carbon to be brought, a nether to be fulfilled, and you pass through 3 rugalim, which triggers the Baal Ta'achar. It's not only a one-time lav; it's a recurring, repetitive lav. B'chol yoyim v'yoyim over Baal Ta'achar. As long as he neglects the fulfillment of that neder, Baal Ta'achar is an ongoing isser. Every day is like a new zman akrava. Every day garners a new lav of Baal Ta'achar. Meisvei, listen to the discussion from the Brisa, which seems to say otherwise. Echad b'chor ve'echad kol ha'kotcha. Whether it's a b'chor, which is meant to be brought as a karma or eaten to its balam, depending if it's a tam or balmum, within that year. Pasuk says shana b'shana. So you meant to bring it within the first year, but you meant to know that this year allotment applies not only to b'chor, it applies to other karbanos as well. You see, this is really a tesefta in Erechin, which is very similar, perhaps learned in close proximity to that brisa that we had back on Daf Dalet Amud Aleph on the bottom, which gave us a full list of shitas when it comes to Baal Ta'achar time frames. We had 1 regel, 2 regalim, 3 in order, 3 out of order, etc. And we have another brisa which adds another shita to the list. This brisa adds the concept of shana. Allowing the nether to linger past a year also triggers Baal Ta'achar. So once again, the brisa says echad b'chor ve'echad kol hakachim, whether it's a b'chor or other korbanos. Kivin she'avar aleim shana b'lei regalim. Once you allow a year to pass by, even if you don't have the 3 regalim yet, the Gemara soon will explain how that's possible. How could you have a year without 3 regalim? So either it's a year without the regalim, that also triggers Baal Ta'achar. This explains because we learned the other korbanos from b'chor, that a year is considered the time frame, the deadline for hakrava. Or, says the Brisa, regalim b'lei shana. You have 3 regalim pass you by without a year. That's pashut. You could have Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot in 7 months. You don't need a year to pass you by. So you could have either or. Either the shana without regalim or regalim without shana. Either Baal Ta'achar. That triggers Baal Ta'achar. Okay, there's going to be a kasha on Rava who said that once Baal Ta'achar sets in, it's an ongoing, recurring love. B'chol yom v'yom. Now, why is this a kasha on Rava? What does that have to do with Rava? Vay my tiyufte. How do you see a tiyufte kasha from this price on Rava? Rav Kahana, mando kamoisev. You meant to know that the person who asked this kasha from the price on Rava, Shabba kamoisev, he asked well. Why? Michte, let's analyze. What is this Tana trying to do? Trying to present all types of lav scenarios. Right? All types of cases of Baal Ta'achar. A year triggers Baal Ta'achar. Regalim triggers Baal Ta'achar. Michti Tana Allah v'kamahadar. Tana is looking for lavim, so to speak, opportunities. So many different ways to apply Baal Ta'achar. Listening b'chol yom v'yom, over Baal Ta'achar. If that's the case, then the Brisa should add that as well. Look, you meant to know every day there's a Baal Ta'achar. The Brisa is trying to present all different types of Baal Ta'achar possibilities. In fact, the Brisa did not mention that. That's a raya that it's incorrect. Baal Ta'achar is a one-time thing, one-time event. Once it sets in, it gets applied once, and that's it. Says the Gemara, V'idach. What does Rava do? How does Rava respond to this price? Rava who said that Baal Ta'achar is going to apply b'chol yom v'yom. What is he going to do with the price which doesn't mention that? Tana lemikbei b'lav kamahada. The Tana is simply trying to tell us when the lav gets nikba, when it gets established, when it gets activated, either through a shana or through regalim. But lavi is seiri like a mahada. The Brisa isn't necessarily looking for numbers of lavim. This so many lavim happen. No, that's not the point of the Brisa. It's just a question of when it gets activated. That's all. But certainly once it's activated, perhaps it happens b'chol yom v'yom. It's a recurring lav. Okay, so we have 3 halachas in the name of Rava. Number 1, that although the lav Baal Ta'achar depends on 3 regalim being neglected, but the mitzvah asay gets applied as soon as he misses the first regal. We had another halacha in the name of Rava regarding tzedakah, that if you have aniyim that can accept it tzedakah, the Baal Ta'achar sets in right then and there. We had the halacha of Rava over here, that once Baal Ta'achar sets in, it's a daily isur. He's over b'chol yom v'yom. Okay, now they're going to analyze the brisa that we just mentioned. Gufa, let's go back. The brisa said echad b'chor v'echad kol hakachim, whether it's a b'chor or other karbonis. Kivin she'avar aleim shana b'lei regalim. As soon as he allows a year to pass him by, even if there are no 3 regalim contained in that year, or regalim b'lei shana, you have 3 regalim without a year. Over Baal Ta'achar sets in. Let's try to analyze this. How is this possible? Now that works. You can have regalim, 3 yomim tovim, without a year. Mishkachas. You can have that how? Very simple. You could have Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot within 6 or 7 months. So 3 regalim without the shana activates Baal Ta'achar. Ela shana b'lei regalim heich mishkachas. But how is it possible to have a year without 3 yomim tovim? Now, if we would propose that this Tana, who speaks about the Shana deadline for Baal Ta'achar, is somewhat following in line with Shitas Rabbi Shimon, who said that the regalim concept is dafka when it's an order. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. So if he's following with that shita, that holds that regalim needs to be considering, but he adds and he says you can have a shana as well, which activates Baal Ta'achar. So he's sort of straddling both sides of the path here. He's taking an element of Rav Shimon, regalim, kesidron, can trigger Baal Ta'achar, and likewise, even if it's a year, without regalim, kesidron, you can have Baal Ta'achar as well. He's going to add that element. But when it comes to the regalim aspect, he's following Reb Shimon's shita. It needs to be Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. So now we can understand what he meant when he said Shana b'le regalim. You can have a year without regalim kesidron. So it's either or. Either regalim kesidron, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, in order to trigger Baal Ta'achar, or even if you have a year passing you by without regalim kesidron. That certainly makes sense, because let's say the nether happened before Shavuos, Erev Shavuos. So you have Shavuos and Sukkot, and then you start the cycle again, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. You have a total of 5 Yom Tov until Baal Ta'achar sets in, if it's dependent upon regalim kesidron. That was Rav Shimon's shita. We had this back on Daf Dalet. This Tana disagrees. He says, as long as a year passes you by, we learn this from B'chor, a year in itself is reason enough to trigger Baal Ta'achar, even if it's a year without regalim kesidron. So again, if this Tana is adopting somewhat Reb Shimon's concept that regalim needs to be in order, so you could have this type of case, that a Shana will not have regalim kesidron. Right? If you have the neder committed to before Shavuos, let's say, you can have a whole year pass you by till next Shavuos without 3 regalim kesidron, because you had Shavuos, Sukkot, and Pesach, 3 out of order. But if this Tana is not following Reb Shimon, let's say it's following Tana Kama, the Chachamim, that we don't hold of regalim kesidron. So how could you find that you'll have a year since the neder without 3 Yom Tovim? It's impossible. Every year has 3 Yom Tovim. So what does the Brisa mean? Now, Bishleim el Rabbi Mishkachasla. We have machlokes between Rabbi and the Rabban. A general machlokes regarding how to define the word Shana in the Torah. According to Rabbi, it's a solar year, which contains 365 days. According to Rabbi, Shana in the Torah is always referring to that consistent set year containing 365 days. Whether it's a leap year, regular year, it doesn't matter. It's consistently 365 days. Whereas the Rabbanan hold that a Shana is a lunar year. 12 lunar months. Sometimes you have a Shana Muberes, a leap year where you add another Adar. So you end up with about 384 days. Sometimes it's a standard year, which gives you 354 days. So Bishlam Rebbe, according to Rebbe Mishkachasla, you can have a year without 3 regalim. How? B'shana Muberes. If you have a leap year. So first outside. Let's say you have a leap year. So when it comes to the lunar counting, it's going to be 384 days. Now, according to Rebbe, we follow the solar. It's 365 days. So let's say he committed to the neder after Pesach. This year after Pesach. Now, 365 days later is when the year is over. It so happens it was a leap year. So they added another Adar. So the year is really 384 days. Meaning to get around to the next Pesach, you have to pass through 384 days. Now, according to Rebbe, it's 365 days, which means that as soon as he finishes his year of 365, it's still before next Pesach. So he'll have a year, a Torah year, according to Rebbe, a Torah year is 365, without passing through 3 Yom Tovim. So you have a Shana b'lei regalim. So according to Rebbe, it works. But according to Rabbanan, it's not going to work. So let's see. Bishlam Rebbe Mishkachas. According to Rebbe's shita, a year is defined by 365. Mishkachas la b'shana u'beres. You can have this scenario of a shana b'lei regalim if it happens to be a leap year. This Sanya. Where do we have this machlokes between Rebbe and the Rabban? Shana tmima. This is a pasuk speaking about a person who sells a home in a walled city, and the seller has within a year to redeem that property. Shana tmima. The fact that the pasuk adds the word tmima, says Rebbe apparently was speaking about a full year, a solar year containing 365 days. Rebbe Omer Moina Gimel Meos V'Shishim Chamisha Yaim. You count 365 days. Kiminyan Imasacham like a solar year. And we learn from here that elsewhere as well, wherever the Torah speaks about Shana, it's a year consisting 365 days. No, it's a lunar year. Moina Yud Beis Chodesh Miyam L'Yayim. You count 12 months from day to day, meaning a lunar year. If you happen to have a leap year, so the seller ends up gaining, he gets an extra month. So getting back to our Bryce regarding Balta Achar. So according to Rebbe, it works. According to Rebbe, we have a case where the Agdasha Basar Chagam Matzos. He was Magdish the animal this year, right after Pesach. It happens to have been a leap year. According to Rebbe, we ignore the fact that it's a leap year. A year is 365 days. Techima tashili Adar Basra. So you go around the year 365 days later, you get to the end of Adar, beginning of Nisan, Shana Malya, you've completed the full cycle. You've went through 365 days to complete the solar year, but regalim leimalu. You haven't yet went through three. You haven't gone through three regalim, because you started this year after Pesach, and the full circle of 365 days only landed you before next year Pesach. So you can have a Shana b'lei regalim. According to Rabbanan, Shana is always referring to the lunar year, so you never have a year without three regalim. It's inevitable. The lunar year carries within it three regalim. Right? Because this year's lunar year is an extra month. It's a month longer. So when you finish that lunar year, you've traveled through three regalim. So what does the Brisa mean? Shana b'lei regalim. Answers the Gemara, the Tani of Shmaya. We can't figure it out according to Rav Shmaya's shita. Shmaya holds that Bezdin had the authority to arrange the months, the lunar months, in accordance with the various needs and calculations and tzorchei rabim. Some months were considered 29-day months, others 30-day months. There was no set consistent a number of 29-day months or 30-day months. It varied by year. And therefore he says like this: Atzeres ba'amim hey. Sometimes you can have a case where Shavuos falls out on the 5th day of Sivan. You see, Shavuos is always going to be 50 days from Pesach. Now, as per the day of the month, that's depends on the year, right? That's depending on the year. Atzeres ba'amim hey. Sometimes Shavuos will come out on the 5th day of Sivan. Pam Shisha, sometime on the 6th day of Sivan. Pam Shiva, sometime on the 7th day of Sivan. Okay, so how's that? Shnei Maleim. Suppose Nisan and Iyar are full months, 30-day months. Chamisha, then Shavuos is on the 5th day of Sivan. Why? Because you start counting the 50 days on the 16th day of Nisan. You have 15 days till the end of the month, 30-day month. You have 30 days of Iyar, so it's a total of 45. 5 days later is Shavuos, 5th day of Sivan. Shnei Chaser and Shiva. On a year where Nisan and Iyar happen to be Chaser months, 29-day months, in which case you need an extra 2 days. So you push Shavuos 2 days later, Shiva comes down the 7th day of Sivan. Echad Malev, Echad Chaser. If one of these months is a full month, one not a full month, so Nisan and Iyar, one is a 29, one is a 30. So then Shisha, then it's only pushed 1 day further, ends up being on the 6th day of Sivan. So according to Shmaya's approach, no 2 years are the same. Sometimes you have a year where it's 2 days longer than the past year. Right? If that's the case, you can have a korban which was around for a full year, but has not yet experienced 3 regalim. Why? Like this. Let's say you magdish the korban this year when Shavuos was on the 5th day of Sivan. A day later you magdish the korban. So you magdish the korban on the 6th day of Sivan, Vav b'Sivan. Next year, Shavuos was 2 days later, Zayin b'Sivan. So come a year later, Vav b'Sivan, a year later from the Hegdish, it's a year without 3 regalim, because this korban only passed through Sukkot, Pesach, but had not yet experienced Shavuos. Remember, he was magdish a day after Shavuos this year, and a year later, Vav Sivan is the day before Shavuos, because next year Shavuos is Zayin b'Sivan. So it's a Shana b'lei regalim. So according to even the Rabbanan, you can have a case of Shana b'lei regalim. Uman Tana de Palagleder of Shmaya. Now this presentation was presented by a specific Tana, right? We had the Meisvei, the Tana which presented a new concept of Shana b'lei regalim. Who is the Tana disagrees? Meaning there's a Tanakama, there are other Shittas who don't discuss this type of concept, because Tanakama holds there's no concept of Shana b'lei regalim. Uman Tana de Palagleder of Shmaya, because that Tana disagrees with Rav Shmaya. You can't just go manipulate and orchestrate your years according to need. Achermi, because that Shita is Acherim, following Shita is Acherim, who hold that the number of days contained within a month was set standard and consistent. It's always a full month, 30 month, 29-day month, 30, 29, 31. It's never manipulated or orchestrated according to need. So you cannot have a situation where Shavuos this year is on Zayin b'Sivan, next year on Vav b'Sivan. It doesn't work. And therefore you cannot have a Shana b'lei regalim. So it's Acherimi, the sign Acherim Oimrim. The years were actually very predictable. Ein bein atzeres la'atzeres. Therefore they say like this. The amount of days between this year's event and next year's event, for instance, this year's Shavuos and next year's Shavuos, ein bein atzeres la'atzeres. Ve'ein bein Rosh HaShanna Rosh HaShanna. How many days apart is next year's Rosh HaShanna going to be from last year's Rosh HaShanna? Meaning, how many days down the week? Ela daled yom milvad, 4 days. Why? Because according to Shittas Acherim, years are very predictable. The months are arranged very orderly. It's a 30-day month, 29-day month, 30-day month, 29-day month, which gives you a year that contains 354 days standard. Shin Nun Dal Yam. Divided into weeks. You have 50 weeks. Right? Each week is 7 days. So you have 50 weeks plus 4 days left over. 354 divided into weeks, 50 weeks plus 4 days left over. And that's why when Shavuos this year is on a Sunday, next year's Shavuos is going to be on a Thursday. This year's Rosh HaShanna is on a Monday. Next year's Rosh HaShanna is going to be on a Friday. So it's very clear, consistent, and predictable. If it happens to be a leap year, an extra Adar of 29 days, so 29 split into weeks is 4 weeks plus an extra day. So that gives you another day to push next year's event down the week as per relative to last year's event. So according to Acherim, we don't manipulate, we don't rearrange the years. Every year is consistent, predictable. It's a standard year consisting of 354 days. If it's a leap year, then you have an extra month of 29 days. In any case, the Yom Tovim fall out on the same day of the month, including Shavuos. You can't go ahead and apply the concept of a Shana b'lei regalim. Continues the Gemara. Let's go back to the halachas of Balta Ach. Yoirish ma'u Balta Ach. Suppose a Yoirish inherited his father's korban. Now, Tosfos points out, he has a chiyuv to bring that korban. But does Balta Ach apply in that case or not? Why not? Ki sidar neder amar achmano, v'lei nader. When the Torah speaks about Balta Ach, Torah says, if you're going to commit yourself to bringing a neder, don't delay. V'lei nader. This fellow, this Yerush, has nothing to do with the commitment. Although he has to bring the korban, but he didn't make the neder. Oidilma, perhaps you can say it applies to him as well. Why? Ubasa Shama. Vesim Shama. Amar Achmana. We have another pasuk. When you come there, when you visit the Mikdash, bring your karbanis. V'machayev. This fellow has to come to the Mikdash. He has to be a regal. So perhaps Bal Ta'achar relates to that chiyuv. Tashma, let's bring it right. The Torah B'chia presented a brayso which says like this. The pasuk says, Ki dorish idrushenu Hashem lekecha me'imach. Hashem will demand the chiyuv, the fulfillment of your obligation me'imach. We learn from here pratli yorish. It's coming to exempt a yorish. It's not his personal chiyuv. It's not me'imach. So apparently he's potter from Bal Ta'achar. Says the Gemara, "V'ayim me'imach m'boile." We already need that pasuk. We already used it for something else. Zeleka shikro peya. We had this back in yesterday's daf. Me'imcha. Hashem is telling you, make sure to give the portion that belongs to the ani. That's me'imach. That's from you. That's in your crop. The leket, the shikro peya, the matnas aniyim. So this pasuk is already used and unavailable for Yerush. Says the Gemara, we learn both things from the same pasuk. Karebe imach, v'karebe me'imach. The word imach without me is telling you, hand over the portion of the aniyim. V'karebe me'imach. The extra mem is telling you, this applies only if it's your personal commitment, as opposed to a Yerush on his father's commitment. But Reb Zeir had another shaila. What about an Isha? Isha mahi b'Bal Ta'achar. If an Isha made a commitment, a neder, does Bal Ta'achar apply to her? Why not? Miyam rinan, holay mechayve b'riyah. Perhaps you can say that the concept of Bal Ta'achar is very much connected to and related to Riyah. When you come to the Beis HaMikdash through the regal, bring your karbanos. Well, an Isha is potter. In Aliyah regal, pasuk says kol zechurcha. So perhaps she's exempt from Bal Ta'achar as well. Taisus points out the same halach would apply to another person who is exempt for whatever reason. A zakin, a chayla, a person doesn't have property. All those that are pata from Riyah, perhaps a pata from Bal Ta'achar as well. Oy Dilma, says the Gemara, perhaps you can say no. An Isha is different. Ha'isa b'simcha. Although she's pata from being Eila Regel, from the carbon Eilas Riyah, but she has a mitzvah of simcha. And since she has to come to the Mikdash to experience that, to partake in the Shalmi Simcha, which is the primary fulfillment of Simcha, and therefore perhaps she has to bring her karbanos as well. And Bal Ta'achar applies, says Rashi off to the left. Perhaps since she's part from Riyah, she's part from Bal Ta'achar, she doesn't have to come to the Mikdash. There's no time frame of regalim as pertaining to Bal Ta'achar. Perhaps you can say although she doesn't have to come for oil regal, but she has to come to experience simcha. And that applies even to Nashim. What does that have to do with the Mikdash? Because we learned the way to be Mekayim simcha during the Zman HaMikdash is by eating basar shlamish. So, what about the Isha when it comes to Bal Ta'achar? Is it dependent upon Alila Regel, which an Isha is pata from? Or shall we say, since she's chayv in Simcha, and to experience the Shalmi Simcha, she has to be there for that? Bal Ta'achar is applied as well. Continues the Gemara. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye turns to Rav Zeir. How could you even have a shayla of a typically? Of course. If you maintain that she's chayv in Simcha, then of course she has to come do her Bal Ta'achar. She has to come bring her karbanos, otherwise Bal Ta'achar applies. What's your shayla? Says the Gemara, what does Abaye mean? Miyamar Abaye hachi. Did Abaye maintain that it's so pasha, it's so clear cut? V'amar Abaye, didn't Abaye himself say, Isha bala mesamcha. Isha doesn't have her own personal chiv of simcha. Her husband has to be mesameach. So why is Abaye asking our Abzera? Well, of course, Isha has a chiv to come for simcha. It's not her chiv. So although perhaps she has to be there, that's to enable her husband to be mesameach. But it's not her own personal chiv, and you can't say it triggers Bal Ta'achar. True, Abaye himself held that mitzvah simcha is incumbent upon the husband to mesameach the wife. It's not her personal chiv, and of course, Bal Ta'achar can't be triggered by mitzvah simcha, which isn't her personal obligation. Rather, he's relating to Reb Zera, who seem to hold otherwise. Zera asked, well, is she pata because she's pata from Riyah? Or is she chayiv about Ta'achar because she's chayiv in Simcha? Apparently, Rav Zera held its whole personal chayiv. Says Abai, okay, if it's a chayiv of Simcha, then what are you asking? Of course, that's sufficient reason to trigger Baal Ta'achar. But Abai himself personally did not hold of that. Although an Isha has to be involved in Simcha, it's her husband's chayiv to involve her, to include her in the Simcha. Of course, that cannot trigger Baal Ta'achar. The Bnei Yeshiva had the following shayla. We spoke about the Shana deadline when it comes to a Bechor. When do we begin to count the year? When it comes to a Bechor. Abaye Amar Mishal Shenoilad. From the moment of birth. That's considered day one. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Amar Mishal Shenoilad Tzah. No. You only begin counting from day 8 when he's Ro'il Tzah, when he's suitable to be brought as a korban. So that's when you begin the time clock. V'lei pligi, says the Gemara, there's no machlokes. Ha betam. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov is speaking about an unblemished bechor, which is meant to be brought as a korban. Then you can't say the zman starts from Leda. He's not right. He's not a suitable candidate before 8 days old. So it's only when he's 8 days old you begin counting. Ha v'bal mum. Abai is speaking when he was born as a bal mum, in which case he's going to be shechted outside the mikdash, and that can happen on the first day. So you begin counting from the moment of birth. Bal mum? What do you mean? How could you eat the korban? Even if he's a bal mum, you have to wait until you can verify whether he's a viable offspring, and that takes 8 days. Otherwise, perhaps he's a neifel and he's an avela. The Kimlei baby Shekolole Chadasha was speaking about a case where the farmer happens to know that's a full-term offspring, in which case there's no question of viability. In this case, you can have him the first day. Therefore, Abaye says, you begin counting that year from day 1. Okay, so in summary, we learned about Baal Ta'achar, which entails a mitzvah saseh, a mitzvah leis saseh, and if he neglects to fulfill that obligation, business kaif him, forces him to mekayim his neder. The Gemara says it applies to a case where it's Amar v'lei hifresh. He verbalized that commitment, but did not yet set aside any item for the fulfillment of that neder. Baal Ta'achar applies there as well. Or in a case where he was mafresh, but did not yet deliver on his commitment. We have several shittas regarding the time frame of Baal Ta'achar. We spoke about 1 regel, spoke about shnei regel. This was mentioned back on Daf Dalet. We spoke about shlosh regalim kisidron, which we mentioned today briefly, and we mentioned shlosh regalim shaloi kisidron. We had a shita back on Daf Dalet that sukkahs triggers Baal Ta'achar, and today we had a new shita that even a shana, allowing a year to pass by without regalim, is sufficient grounds to trigger Baal Ta'achar. How do you have a year without regalim? We have 2 scenarios. Either according to Rebbe's shita, that a year is characterized by 365 days. So you had the korban committed after Pesach this year, happened to be a leap year, in which case 365 days later, it's still before next year's Pesach, so you have a year without regalim. However, according to the Chachamim, that it's always going to be a lunar year, how can you have a year without 3 regalim? So the Gemara said that according to Rav Shmaya, it could work out. He held that the days contained in the months were unpredictable. Sometimes they used to have 30-day months, sometimes 20-day months, depending on the factors at play. Sometimes Shavuos can fall out on the 5th day of Sivan, sometimes on the 7th day of Sivan, depending on whether Nisan or Iyar were full months or not full months. So you can have a case like this. You magdish the korban Vav Sivan, which happened to be a day after Shavuos. Shavuos was Hey Sivan, and you magdish it a day later, Vav Sivan. A year later, Vav Sivan, you have a full year, but not yet 3 regalim, because the next year it happens to be that Shavuos was Zayin Sivan. Here you go, you have a Shana b'lei regalim. The Brisa says that in itself triggers Baal Ta'achar. What about a Yerush? Is he obligated to his father's commitments as per Baal Ta'achar? The Gemara says no. Regarding an Isha, we left it off with a question mark. Regarding when to begin counting the year of Bechor, the Gemara says, well, it depends. If he's a Tam, he's meant for a korban, then you have to wait till day 8, where he's Ra'i for korban. Whereas if it's a Baal Mum, and and you know that he's a viable vlad, which case you can shecht him on the first day, you count the year starting from that first day. All the best to you and much hatzlacha.